Awesome. That's recording. Okay, I'd like to welcome you all to our second guest, Chloe Bostock. Chloe was with us, graduated in 2019, and you were a creative coordinator and then a technical coordinator, and you now work at in the same place as a trailer farm. And we had you in recently, and you gave us such a good insight to obviously what that company's doing and what your role is. And I think that's pretty fascinating in terms of the amount of varied roles within the industry currently. So, yeah, I'll leave it to you, Chloe, and go for it.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk to you a bit about what I do today, but my main thing is going to be about cinematics and game capture. So let's get going. Hi, as I said, I'm Chloe Bostock. I did a computer games design degree at the University of Gloucestershire. There it is. I also did a placement year, and when I did my placement year, I went to Warner Music. And so what I was doing there was working alongside with game devs to get music into their games, basically, which was really awesome because I got to meet a lot of different like game development teams. So that was great. And now I'm a technical coordinator at the trailer farm. So this is Trailer Farm. This is us. We're a trailer house, so we make trailers for games, sometimes tech. So sometimes we did something for Microsoft, which was for their I think it was for when they were first announcing the cloud or something. I honestly don't remember. It was pre me. We also work with previs, so that I think we've worked with some films even sometimes to do like concepts and stuff. And we also do outsourcing, so some people can outsource their like development to us as well. We were formed in 2011. We're based in Brighton, and just before the pandemic hit, we bought this nice fancy new studio, and now no one can be there. So that's good. We were acquired by Keywords Studios a couple of years ago, and Keywords are they describe themselves as a video game industry services company. So some of their studios like Studio Gobo, Player Research, and some of the ones we work with a lot are Mindwalk and Volta. So we sort of all, like, if we have too much animation work coming in, we might pass it over to one of our sister studios. And this is some stuff you might know or have seen that we've worked on. So we've done the Fall Guys trailer campaigns. I think we've done most of their trailers. Shadow Warrior 3, we did a teaser trailer for them. Godfall, we did a couple of their trailers, which was really cool. And Borderlands 3, we did all of their character trailers, and also we're still working on some of their title cards and stuff like that. So that's sort of an example of when we've created in-game content. And Just Cause 4 we worked with as well. Oh, and Darksiders, I forgot to put that one on there. We did a lot of work with Darksiders as well. Technical coordinator, what is that? It's a bit of a catch-all name because like there's a couple of technical coordinators, and we kind of do a lot of different things. So one of the things we do is game capture. So that's like gameplay, free cam. I'll dive more into that later because not everyone might know what that means, but it's obviously something I do every day, so I don't know how widely known it is. But that's just, we play the game, we record it, and that goes into a trailer. Cinematics, again, pretty self-explanatory, but camera work, composing, that kind of stuff. Asset appraisal is something we do as well. So obviously when someone sends their game in, we'll play it, and if we're like, no, this is too broken, you can't make a trailer with this, then obviously it doesn't go any further. But it's also to see, like, is it really high res? Can we do cool cinematics, or is it one of those more top-down games? So we don't really want to go in close. We want to just sort of capture the gameplay as it is, kind of thing. And then QA, which we didn't do before I joined the company, and we kept sending out trailers with lots of errors, and I was like, maybe we should start QAing stuff. And they're like, good idea, you should be in charge of that. And I was like, But now, yeah, so now I'm in charge of that. But that's just like checking for errors, watching through, making sure, like, if we've got it in German, it's the right German words, it's not saying something completely different, stuff like that. So that's sort of a basic rundown of what my job is. So game capture. So this is from one of the trailers we did. This is Earthfall. we sort of split our game capture into point of view, which is like gameplay view. So like how the game was intended to show, like how you play the game, what you see while you're playing. That's our like point of view stuff. And when we do that, we do something called idealized gameplay, which I'll go into a bit more later. And then the other sort of style of capture we do is free cam. So that's a detached view, like as you can see in that second GIF, it's like it's the same kind of gameplay, but we're seeing it from a different point of view. It's where you detach the gameplay camera and you just sort of move it around like you would move a camera in Unreal kind of thing. So it's more of a cinematic capture of like the actual gameplay. Yeah, so that's those two. So our game capture pipeline, we will get a brief from a client. They'll be like, hey, here's this game. We want you to capture it and make a trailer. So we'll then test capture. Basically, our test capture section is just to see what we can do. So do they have special moves, and do the special moves look cool, or do they look shit and so we won't use them? Or like sort of testing out what looks really good, like what we can show that will look cool and what doesn't, and also to sort of test what sort of like stuff they have that helps capture. So with a lot of Unreal games, they sort of almost come with a built-in free cam called the debug camera. So you can move that around and use that to sort of capture stuff. But a lot of other games don't. So that would be like, okay, so in that situation, we can only capture in like point of view, like gameplay view. So we spend a while testing the game, and that also sort of informs like what we're going to do. So the creators will know, okay, we can do this, this, and this, and it will sort of inform the sort of narrative of the trailer as well. Then we go into shot listing. So that will be taking the creatives from the creative director and like the narrative that they want to show, pairing that with gameplay and writing out what we're going to do. Because gameplay is cool because you think, oh, I'm just going to play the game for ages and just record it. And then it's like, no, actually, it's a lot more like granular. You've got to be like, okay, we need to have this guy running here. So yeah, we spend a lot of time doing our shot listing. And then it goes into like gameplay capture and free cam. And then we just have a sort of cycle of capture, feedback, capture, feedback. And depending on the clients, like sometimes we'll do it once, they're like, amazing, perfect. And then sometimes they'll be like, can we have this guy move 1 centimeter to the left? And then it's perfect. So depending on that, it can be a long or short process. So these are the captures like devices we use. OBS is just a free like software. You can just download it from the internet. It just like you record it straight. It's an application you open on your computer. You can just record it straight from there. OBS is really good because it's quite reliable. It's really easy to use and set up. It doesn't always hit 4K, which didn't always used to be an issue, but now everything is trying to hit 4K and people want more of their content recorded in 4K. So it's something we still use, but not as much. So a lot of the time we're using the Atomos, which is really good because it's a separate device that is like plugged in alongside your computer, and it's got a screen so you can see what you're recording, record it, watch it back and be like, oh, that's not quite right, do it again, whatever. So that's really good, but the only thing is it doesn't have as much color depth. So we were finding a lot of the time like it was coming out really dark and you couldn't brighten it because there was no like depth to the blacks and stuff like that. And so yeah, and we also found we were getting quite a bit of strict screen tearing with that. So we ended up switching to the Elgato, which is what we have now, which are really powerful little machines. My one's broken though, so we don't get along very well. But yeah, they're really good because you plug one end into your computer. I think you can also use these on consoles as well. But we plug one end into the computer, one into the monitor, and then you can just record it. The only issue is it comes from the SD card. So if you want to watch any of your footage back, you have to take out the SD card, put it in your computer and watch it that way. But it's like much more reliable. You don't get like, we hardly ever get screen tearing with it. So that's sort of where like our industry standard now. So idealized gameplay and free cam. This is basically, I'm just going to talk you through how we record stuff. So a lot of the time it looks like we just might play the game for like an hour and just record it and then pick out the cool bits. But like idealized gameplay is the idea of what we're filming and recording is like the best version of like the gameplay, like how the devs want the game to be played, kind of thing. And how we achieve this is it's it's a lot of carefully planning out a scene. So I'll show you this Call of Duty trailer in a minute, and it looks like, oh, they've just played like a round together. But actually, it will be, the way we do it is like, okay, so everyone will go into the game. We're like, okay, you two stand there. There'll be one guy there, and then I'll run in, and as I run in, you shoot that guy across the map, and then we've got to time it so as we run, I'll slide under here, and someone has to run in there. Like, it's all really like granular and really specific. And with scenes like that, it obviously takes a while because we're like we're doing it and someone's like, oh, sorry, I didn't run in time. We're gonna have to start again. So then you've got to like go back. Everyone's got to like find their grenades again, and it can still be super fun, but it is a lot more specific. It's like really about what can look cool, but also show off like what you're supposed to do. Like, so like one of the things we look for is like getting cool kills, but a lot of the time they have to be planned. So we did one where someone was zip lining down a zip line, and someone had to get a sniper shot on that guy, and that doesn't happen very often in gameplay because it's just that situation doesn't come up a lot, but it looks really cool. So it's like that kind of thing is almost, you got to like plan those cool kills out. And then also in a lot of like multiplayer games, especially, like although there are like team like modes, you don't always find teams working together, but it's a lot of the time it's what people like to see and what gets shown in trailers. So it's a lot of planning, like, okay, we'll split up and these two will flank round and then we'll kill these guys in the middle and that kind of thing. And occasionally this stuff does come up naturally. So we will often end one of our capture sessions just being like, okay, everyone, let's just play the game for like half an hour or something, and we'll just capture here and there. And you do get cool stuff that way, but especially if they want to show off like specific special abilities, that sort of is the situation where you have to build it more into the shot. Okay, I'll talk you through this trailer because I think there's some interesting techniques that they use. So so like right here, with all these shots coming across the screen, I don't know if you've seen the mini map, but sometimes half the time there's no one even shooting at anyone. We just shoot across the map because all the like shots and the shot VFX looks really cool and it makes the scene feel super busy. So it's stuff like that. And then so he does this cool thing. He slides under here and then we see another guy get shot. Like, that has to be so specifically timed. And then stuff like this as well. You switch. What a technique we often see is where someone performs a special move and we switch into a free cam to show it because it just looks really cool, basically. Like stuff like this. But yeah, so stuff like this, these whole scenes will be mapped out. So this guy gets killed, someone else is running in. That whole switch, especially when you're switching to from free cam to just gameplay, like that, they have to do that multiple times to get the right shot and the right angles and also the right timing of that person just simply switching around to the other side. Yeah, and the same here. Like, there was a bit, like, if you look in the background of a lot of these things, you see like those shots flying across the screen and like the shots going across there. Like, they're not shooting at anyone. They're just shooting at the ground because it makes those cool like hits off the ground. It looks really like, it makes the scene look really interesting. Yeah,
That's awesome, Chloe.
it's really cool, right?
Yeah, it's good. How you make that all come together from from the free cam and obviously the in game, and how you sort of make it all scripted and granular, like you said. That's pretty, a lot of work goes into that. It sounds fun too, by the way. It does sound fun.
It is actually really fun. Except when the only situation where it's not is like walking shots, because it's like you're trying to get a cool walking shot going in, and so you walk 3 seconds, and the like whoever's like on the camera is like, okay, and again, and so you go back, walk forward, and again, and you're just doing that walking shot like 10 times just because like someone clipped in with someone else and stuff like that. Yeah, so then we've got cinematics. So we do cinematics for our trailers and also for in-game. So like on that one there, we've got like I mentioned, we do some of the Borderlands title cards, or we often do some of the intros for I can't remember what the game's called. Like Apex, but not Apex. Anyway, we do some of their season intros as well. Stuff like that. So yeah, we often work in sort of any engine. Obviously, if we're doing in-game, we'll work specifically in what the client works in, because it's got to be this like the same just to work with it. But if we're making a trailer, sometimes if we think we can get a higher fidelity in a different engine, we will switch. And we often do build original content. So in that Godfall GIF, I don't know if you can quite see it. No, I think it cuts too early. But as you look up, there's this like 3-headed dragon in the sky. And so that didn't exist. Like, we built that at our company. Like, we built that asset, and I think it's going to be used in the game. I'm not sure. But yeah, so that's sort of like a brief breakdown of cinematics. So this is our pipeline. It's much longer, obviously. And this does vary as well, because depending on the size of the project, but it's basically the same. We get the brief in, but then cinematics obviously even more granular than game capture is. So then it goes into like storyboarding, and because we want to make sure, basically with cinematics, because it's such a long process, we don't want to just straight away go, okay, here's a scene, and then they come back with all this feedback, because it's a really expensive process doing it that way. So instead, that's when we do storyboarding. Then when we think, okay, we've got a basic idea, cool, feedback to the client. Then after that, we move on to animatic, which I think we talk about that a bit at uni, but that's just like a moving storyboard, animated storyboard. Just because it gives a bit more of an understanding of like the camera movements and like where the characters are going and what's happening there. Then that goes to feedback, and then we sort of get a bit of a loop there until we're sort of decided, okay, yeah, that's where we want it. And then we move on to block out, which will just be like a lot of the time it's just like T-posing characters, like moving from here to here to be like, yeah, so that's where they're going to go. That's how the camera's going to move. And then it gets a first pass, which will be like putting actual animations in, sort of refining the actual camera movements and the lighting and everything. And then goes to feedback, second pass, which is again just sort of taking that little bit further. And then feedback and polish, which again is just getting it closer to final, and then to final. But obviously, depending on the project and feedback and stuff, you'll have more sort of passes than that. But yeah, so it can depend. So like something like this, we can have so for Borderlands, we had a whole and like completely separate team who didn't work on anything else. All they worked on was Borderlands. So we had animators, lighting artists, technical artists, cinematic artists on that. But then we also had something like Dwarfine, which is a much smaller game, like it's not as well known, where there was just me and one other guy doing the cinematics on that, and we did all of the cinematics on that. So obviously, as you can see, like the process can be a lot bigger or smaller depending on what we're working on and what we're trying to produce. So for Borderlands, it was obviously a fully animated, like 2-minute trailer for their first one. We did the Happy Together one. And then for something like Dwarfine, it was just 3 small character shots. So it obviously needed a lot smaller of a team. So obviously cinematics, we separate our cinematics. So we have like cinematics like this, which is what I do, and then our CGI pre-rendered stuff. So the cinematics we do will be in engine. So we will use Unreal or Unity most of the time. Most of the time we'll match what the game comes in on, but if we think we can achieve something, we often find we can get something that looks a higher quality if we take the assets from Unity and put it in Unreal, which is fine by me. I prefer Unreal. And we often sometimes we'll work with custom client engines, but it's depending. A lot of the time, if they have sort of their own custom engines, they're really like, they don't like to share that stuff. So sometimes it will be in Unreal anyway. Techniques. So I just thought I'd run through some basic cinematic techniques. You've probably come across these before, but rule of thirds, like the little dog, is just matching stuff up. So it, like they always say, if you just have sort of eye level straight normal, it looks kind of boring. So if you sort of shift something to the side or match it up with the lines, like matching horizons with the horizontal lines and like characters with the vertical lines, it's sort of just a general rule. And it's the same as the golden ratio, but I think the whole golden ratio is a bit stupid because rule of thirds makes much more sense. But that's just me. Headroom as well. So you can see above the dog, he's got like a good amount of headroom, because the idea of framing the character that way is just supposed to, like, it looks like right, I guess, and it's just it's just kind of a technique. The general idea is like you keep room above the subject's head, like it gives them space. And doing the opposite kind of feels a bit off kilter. But then obviously, if you look at this second picture down, they've used the character space and framing really specifically. So they also always say you should have space in front of your character, because like, especially if that's where they're looking, because it would be like that's where they're going, and that feels correct. But then, as you see in this picture, they've done the complete opposite. There's no headroom, and the framing is really close to his face. And doing that makes you feel really like uncomfortable, and like it gives this trapped feeling. So you can actually just completely flip the rules to create the complete opposite feeling if that's what you're going for. And then also is like, I've always been taught, also completely ignore the rules. Like choose 2001 Space Odyssey. Everything is like central and symmetrical. And they always say not to do that, but it works so well in that instance. So I think when it comes to cinematics, like it's good to know all the techniques, but also completely, absolutely ignore them if that's what's going to look better. And then I just want to talk about some of the stuff we do, and also some of the techniques you'll notice in other trailers. So this one's cinematic bookending. This is basically we'll do like 3-second cinematic intro, and it might be like a character just sort of doing something cool, like drawing a weapon. Then we'll cut straight into gameplay, and the whole trailer will just be gameplay. And then right at the end, there'll be a cinematic outro, which is just like well, the same thing, kind of. Maybe sometimes we'll do like in this one, some monsters running out, and it's just sort of another thing that kind of looks really cool, and it adds a bit more to the trailer than if it was just gameplay. And it also gives it a bit of a higher quality feeling, but actually doing it that way is pretty cheap, because there's only 2 cinematic shots and the rest is game capture, and it's a much cheaper way to make a trailer. But yeah, it also kind of adds narrative and adds quality to trailers. Then we've got character sequences. So this is something, once I point this out, you are always going to notice this. So in a lot of multiplayer trailers, they do this thing where they do like a free cam intro to focus on the character. Then we'll switch to gameplay, and it will be like they'll do some cool kills, then they do a special move. As the special move happens, it goes back into free cam to show like a cool like pan or what it looks like and what you can do. Then it'll go back into gameplay to see a cool kill, then back into free cam for them to do like a little finisher. And it just makes this little narrative like scene of a character, and it makes you feel like it gives the character, well, a bit of like personality, and makes you think like, so if you see it this way, you're like, oh, that character's really cool and they can do that special move, and or we get to see this cool finisher. It kind of adds a bit of interest to it, I guess. And they often pair this a couple of times, so they do either this with the same character a couple of times to show different special moves, or if it's just like one trailer for lots of characters, you'll see like each different character gets their little scene. But yeah, I'll show you this trailer, and this one. You'll see what I mean. So you start off, we've got a free cam of her running in, and the camera sort of centers on her, so it knows that's the one we're looking at. Then she threw a special ability, then we see that in free cam. Then we cut into gameplay, and she's just running around doing some cool kills, a bit more free cam, then another cool kill, and then we end with her finisher. And it just sort of adds a really cool dimension to the trailer. And you'll see, look, again, a spacewalk, that's them using their special move, bit of free cam to show what they're doing. And you'll find they often bring the character close to the camera before switching into a point of view shot. It's just so you know, like, this is who we're following. Like, this is what we're watching. But yeah, you'll always notice this now in multiplayer trailers. Yeah, so just a quick summary. Cinematics and gameplay capture are core aspects of games, obviously, but also specifically what we do at Trailer Farm. Gameplay capture uses a combination of idealized gameplay and free cam to create trailers, make stuff look cool, I guess. Cinematics uses a lot of the core cinematography techniques to create engaging game content. And also techniques across both disciplines are really shared. Like, we try and employ a lot of the cinematic techniques in our gameplay capture as well, just to sort of make it like pop, I guess. And the main aim of all this stuff is get people interested and keep them interested.
Awesome. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Yeah, it's very interesting. You're getting lots of rounds of applause there. That's nice to see. Oh, look at them all. So we've got over 50 odd people in here at the minute. You got love hearts as well.
Thank you.
Well done. I think it's really interesting how obviously using gameplay and free cam and the sort of focal points and the viewpoints that you mentioned to create this extra dynamic, because it's obviously very important how powerful these clips are to obviously sell the product in terms of in the amount of space you've got to do that. So do you find yourself particularly busy with all this work coming in? How you know? I think the best way to do this is we'll probably open up some more questions. We're gonna have a lot of questions coming in. I can see that through the chat.
Yeah,
now.
I'm just trying to read some of them.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck with
Well,
that.
I think I'll start the ball rolling. You really
Yeah.
started some war here between the golden ratio and the rule of thirds.
Yeah,
I know.
definitely.
I'm really sorry. They are practically the same thing, but I just think the whole setting up of that massive like spiral and stuff, like it's so unnecessary. Just use use the lines.
Yeah, there is obviously you choose what's most appropriate in the situation, and depending on the designer, I guess for yourself or however much experience a photographer or videographer, whoever it is, has with all these different types of graphic design principles. You use what's best. But I would imagine from your point of view, the rule of thirds is just a quick, as you say, it's just a bunch of lines. You just put them on the screen, and
exactly,
align to that. So
the golden ratio is more applicable, I feel, in still content rather than cinematic. But yeah, I think it's just it's easier as well because a lot of software comes with it built in, so you can just turn on the grids and then bam, like you're ready to go.
Yeah, the golden ratio will be used a lot. Like concept artists would use the golden ratio where they're thinking about flow, leading lines, those elements, whereas obviously the grid system's a bit, it's because you've got movement as well. I think that rule applies better within your scenario, and that does make sense from a director's sort of stance. That does make sense to me.
I mean,
okay.
So regardless of that, just to conclude that, I'm really pleased to hear that you mention those sorts of rule sets because we teach it as the foundations and the fundamentals and creative skills for those that do it, particularly the game design students we have in the room and computing technology students. Obviously, the programmers may not have covered the topic to the extent that the other students have, but it's always nice to hear. I know we're not the inventors of these rules, but we know that they have their purpose in the various contexts of whatever design productions that you're doing, whether it's film, cinematography, games, whatever it is. These design principles are fundamental to any kind of process.
Well, you'll find even like I've gotten really into recently photo modes in games. Like I used to never care if a game included photo mode, but recently like I've been loving it. But it's the kind of situation where even in that, if you just quickly jump into the photo mode and align it with the grid, you'll immediately see how it does look so much better, and it does change how like just like the composition of it, I guess. And yeah, it just seems like something when you learn it, it's like, oh yeah, I'm sure it doesn't make that much of a difference, but it really does. And it is one of those things where, especially if we're like we're really busy and we don't have loads of time, we're like, okay, let's chuck this on and we'll do a quick alignment, and you can sort of see how it makes the difference. And I think it is important to learn, because if you start disregarding it before you learn it, then you'll find you're not creating cool stuff. Whereas if you know all this stuff and then you're like, okay, but actually the central symmetry thing is going to look better, then like you've learned all that knowledge and you know that's going to look better despite that stuff, rather than just thinking, oh, I hope this looks better.
Okay. No, that does make sense. That does make a lot of sense. Thank you. If you want to stop sharing your screen so we can, if that's okay, Chloe, thank you. Awesome, that's great. So obviously, well, I think a good question from me, and I don't mind overlapping this. I know you've done this before on another modules. were you aware that this industry existed? And did you find yourself going in this way? Because this is particularly interesting from obviously, you know, the content that we cover, and obviously the more various sectors in industry that are opening up. So how did you go about finding this position and sort of going, you know, about that process? Essentially, I think is a quite important, because a lot of people have sort of said they didn't even know that this industry existed, which is
absolutely. Well, I think a lot of the time it's thought of that game companies will do it in-house, and sometimes they do. But the thing in that situation is, like, when you've got deadlines and you've got so much stuff you need to create just for the game, you don't always have time to then be like, okay, let's do all this to get into a trailer. Because, I mean, fair enough, if you're doing something simple, like, you can do it quite quickly. But when you're doing something that you want cinematics, or you want like all the Fall Guys trailers, they're full CGI, so they're like done in Maya. So that takes a lot of time, and obviously companies don't have time to create their games and do that as well. So that's sort of where like they all come from. And I think I didn't really know about it that much when I was at uni. But when we sort of started looking at jobs, I was like, I don't know, I feel like I don't know about you guys, but there's always specific trailers that I remember. Like there's that Dead Island one to this really cool song, and it's like this guy running along, and this cool music's playing, and then halfway through, like you realize he's got a zombie bite and he turns into a zombie. Like, it's such a good trailer. And it's stuff like that, like those trailers kind of stuck in my mind. And I was like, oh, that sounds really cool, if like to be able to make trailers for games. And that's when I started researching it. But when I originally actually applied for the company, I applied for a video editor role, just because I thought it would be like somewhere I could start. And then they contacted me back and asked me to interview for a creative coordinator. So that's where I went into the company as, which is similar to what I was doing now, but I wasn't working on Unreal and stuff. I was more working in like concepting. But yeah, I think it's just one of those cases of like, now you guys know it's a thing. You can start researching the company. Like there's one based in London called Fire Without Smoke. I think there's one in America called Sunny Side Up, but those are just like the ones that Keyword owns, like our parent studio. So that's 3 just in one like parent company. But yeah, they are definitely becoming more of a thing, I feel. And like I say, I think it is because when you're developing a game, you just don't have the time to make, especially if you've got to hit certain deadlines, you don't always have the time to make this stuff.
So do you find yourself particularly busy at big events like GDC or Rezzed, or, you know, particularly key moments when they are promoting games? Obviously, you find companies going, sugar, we haven't got something together, we need to find somebody. And that's where you guys come in, essentially, to put the stuff together, right? Which you can obviously specialize in that area. So would you find those particular times quite busy?
Absolutely, yeah. We're always busy around big events, especially E3. Like the first Fall Guys trailer, they actually came like a few weeks before, and we're like, we're so sorry, but can you make this in like 2 weeks? And it was like such a big turnaround in the company. But yeah, like we're always, I think it's those sort of key events where people want to either announce their game or sort of announce a new aspect, and that we always get really busy. So yeah, E3 is one. Sort of there's always stuff coming out sort of November, isn't there? So around then we get busy, but then like right after that we have a quiet period because nothing really happens. Sort of December, January is always quite quiet. But yeah, we definitely, around big events, it's always busier. But then again, it depends. When a company like Mediatonic that one time, they were really rushed and we had to do that trailer really quickly. But then we do have people coming in now being like, okay, we need a trailer for E3, and like we started those back in January. And I think as our company's getting bigger, we like the sort of higher ups are sort of more demanding of that. They're like, oh, if you want this, we have to have more of a more time to do it, basically.
Okay, no, that's cool. So that's very interesting. I mean, I think the students are dying to ask you questions, because I've been here before, and I think it's important that they ask a few questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the participants and I'll allow the attendees to unmute. So I'll give you some power to do that, guys. And then what we'll do is I'm going to go through people with their hands up first, on the participants. So I'm going to go with Scott Baldwin. Do you want to ask a question?
Hi, Chloe. Thanks for that. Really interested, especially as I'm actually on the programming side of things. So I'm not really design side, but yeah, I've got a couple of questions really. The first one was, I noticed you said that you use different software like Unity, Unreal, and if there's a proprietary engine, how do you actually get in there to record with cameras, or do you just record the screen, or can you actually code in cameras in the scene, and do you have multiple cameras at the same time?
So it kind of depends. If we're filming in the engine, then we're more likely to sort of almost like play the game through the engine in that sense. So it will be the situation of we'll play the game through the engine and then use debug commands to like detach the camera and go about it that way. If we're ever gonna film like with like by setting up cameras, then that sort of falls more into the cinematics. But a lot of the time, depending on how far along the game is in their like development, we will get sent like a Steam build on a like beta branch or something like that. And again, going through that way, it's sort of like we won't necessarily, if there aren't camera capabilities, it's not down, we won't really set that up. The client will set that up. Okay,
cool. And then just the second question was, do you have like a process? Do you storyboard out the shots as if you essentially were a director? And how many of you guys work on a team to actually plan out the shoot essentially?
Again, it depends on the side of the project. So some of the time it will, for our gameplay shot lists, it will just be like I'll just do one by myself, and we've got another technical coordinator. He often leads some of the projects, so we kind of split up that way. But then if there's, so we've had this project recently where we needed 12 people to capture plus both of us. So that kind of stuff, we will sit down together and be like, okay, or even jump into the game and like sort of roam around and be like, okay, this environment's really cool. Why don't we have one of the guys running across here and sort of plan it that way?
Yeah, no, that's great. It's really fascinating. So thank you very much.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you for that. That's awesome. Thank you, Scott. I'm going to go for Blake Smeals. Do you any questions, please?
Hi. Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're very low. You're very low in sound. It's not very coming through very well.
I'll move it closer a little bit. Is that better?
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, that's
cool.
okay.
I got two questions. How long does it usually take to make like the fully finished trailer? And the second one is, do you guys do placements? Because this sounds really cool.
So how long does it make a trailer? We prefer to have basically a big, like a week or so to just like look at the game and see how it goes and see how it is. And then I think most of our trailers, we try and get as much time as possible, obviously. But I think just the general trailer, we will often finish a couple in a month, or yeah, if it's a bigger project, then it can span like loads of months. So like the Borderlands ones, they were obviously really big projects. They went across a couple of months. But then we had smaller stuff like the Dwarfine one I mentioned before. That was I think done in a month. But yeah, it depends on what's involved with it. With just sort of a simple gameplay capture trailer, they can be done in a month really. And placements, I don't know if we do specific placements, but we're always looking out for new people, and we also always take on freelancers. So one of the at the moment we have a lot of students working with us who we go to for our freelancer capture and stuff. And that's a pretty good way to get in, because we work with them quite frequently because we're always needing extra people. But it's a good way for us to sort of get to know you, get to know your interests, and then sort of work up from there. But as I mentioned before, our company's expanding quite a lot, so we're always on the lookout for people. And I don't know if this might be helpful, but if anyone is interested in cinematics, we're always looking for Unity cinematic artists, because then you can't find them anywhere.
Cool, thank you.
Cool, that's excellent. Thank you, Blake. I'm aware there's some questions in the chat too. We'll get those in a second. I'm going to go to Mirren. Ask a question.
Right, I was going to ask a bit of a different question. Did you by chance watch the TF2 and the Star Wars: The Old Republic cinematics and trailers? Because
possibly time.
yeah, because I don't think there's much better characterization in a small amount of time than the TF2 trailers, and frankly, the sheer coordination of the cinematics for the Old Republic is astounding.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I don't know if I've seen them. I'll have to look. I'll have to check that.
Oh well. I was hoping to get an opinion on those.
I'm sorry. Well, I will watch them and then give an opinion.
Well, you win some, you lose some.
Awesome. So next question. Thank you, Mirren. We'll go with Matthew Mason.
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm working on some of the projects recently involving a lot of AI. How, when you're filming sort of the gameplay part of the trailers, do you rein in some of the more difficult AI, I suppose?
Yeah, that is a great question. A lot of repetition. So in some games, the way they develop it, they will give us a code so we can take over the AI, so we can effectively make it a playable character. So that's the good ones. The bad ones is just we have something we call enemy wrangling, which is basically we have one guy who has God mode on and basically lures all the enemies away until we need them, and then they come like running down the corridor. But yeah, it is definitely a difficulty, and unfortunately there's no real answer. A lot of the time it is just like I said, we have one guy who is distracting them while we're setting up a scene, and then we'll bring them in. Or a lot of the time what we sometimes ask for from our clients is that they'll make like spawn enemy code that we can use, so we can set up a scene and then just spawn who we want in the scene and like when we need them. But unfortunately, yeah, a lot of the time it's just like, oh shit, that guy's just run across the screen, let's start again.
Do you often get to ask for sort of any bespoke stuff from the clients, or is it usually just you get whatever you're given?
We often do ask. We're making it sort of more of a point now. We one of the must-haves we say is like we can't film if we don't have controller compatibility, because it's so difficult to control the camera with like a keyboard. So that is something we always sort of ask for. And I think definitely with our bigger clients, we will be like, yeah, give us all this stuff because we know they have the budget for it. But sometimes, like we won't specifically turn someone away if they're like, oh, we don't have any of that stuff in, like we can just work with it. But we will always ask, because like don't ask, don't get.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. That's great.
Chloe, it's probably easier for you if you have a look at the chat.
Yeah.
You're very popular now. So
there's lots of them coming in.
The last couple of posts, or 3 posts actually, or 5 now, there's a bunch of questions. So it's probably easier if you just go through those, read the question out, and then answer as best as you can.
There's some back here, so I'm going to go from back here.
So I've put a post in with the name of the person. So the first one says Will Parrott, and then who owns the copyright, etc. So you can just go ahead and read that way, I guess.
Okay, I found this one. What type of things would trailer parks be looking for future employees in terms of skills and attributes? I think it depends what you're going into, but I think it's just sort of looking at evidence of your skills. So we have an editor who joined from somewhere else, and all they really wanted from him, it's basically all they really want is to just see you can do what you're saying you can do. So if you're applying to be an editor, they just want to see some cool stuff you've thrown together. Like it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that someone paid you to do, or like they're like at a previous job. Like we've hired people for like who don't have that much experience necessarily, but they showed this cool stuff they did, and we're like, well, they've shown they can do it, so we'll take them on for this one project, and if it doesn't work out, okay, like that's a shame, but if not, then we can keep bringing them back. Because a lot of the way our company hires is we look on a freelancer basis, and then once we've worked with you a couple of times, then like, and we know like you're reliable and stuff, that's when people get brought in. But in terms of skills and attributes, yeah, it's just being able to do what you say you can do. So we obviously, in our company, we have cinematic artists, we have animators, editors, one technical lead. So I think that we're kind of looking for technical people, and then a bunch of producers and project managers. But yeah, like I say, because our company's expanding, like we never used to have animators. That's only something we sort of got recently because we used to outsource our animation. So it's always sort of expanding at the moment.
Cool.
So yeah, what else have we got? What kind of portfolio should I be cultivating if I'm interested in this? Animation, 3D modeling, video editing, etc.
That's an interesting question there, Chloe. Because I mean, we went through your portfolio. I don't know. Would you mind if I posted your Wix portfolio onto the link?
Mine is main. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I was going to say because the students can have a look then, and then you can obviously talk about it if you wish. That's fine.
Yeah. So when I applied, I think mine was sort of separated into a few sections. So when I first applied, I think I had like my level design, editing, and asset design. So like 3D modeling. And I think it depends on what you're interested in. So obviously all of those skills like are something you need when you're working in this kind of place, because we do all of that stuff. But it's like I guess those for our cinematic artists, we look for cinematics, but there's also like a big part of that is scene setup and set dressing. So in that sense, we get more of like the level design coming into it in that sense. And then with our animators, a lot of the animators also do work in 3ds Max or Maya. So I think a sense of it is sort of trying to understand what you're interested in, but then there's also, especially at our company because we're quite small, there's a lot of people doubling up on what they do. So showing, if you're an animator but you can also do a 3D model, showing that is really helpful, because like they know if they hire you as an animator but we have this emergency thing come out, you can cover it. So I think you kind of want to figure out what specifically you're interested in doing and then sort of cater it to that. I don't know if that was a very helpful answer. But
I think along that with your portfolio, I think, and a lot of the processes that you've discussed anyway, and you've mentioned during your talks, should give them an insight in terms of all those elements. So that's really good in that. I was going to say, Will Parrott, he says, who owns the copyright for the trailer, you or the company, especially with IP and all those issues?
I honestly don't know specifics, but we don't really, I don't think we really own any of it, because we're just working with what they have created, like what they have. We're essentially creating from what they have already made, so we don't really own the copyright of it per se. But we obviously do can say, yeah, we made that thing. So we don't just sort of it's not just like, okay, that's theirs now and they can do whatever with it. Like we obviously do still, we were the ones who made it, so it partly is ours. But going down to legal specifics, I actually don't know.
I'm sure you're probably under an NDA as well, probably. Obviously, if you're working on something that's...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you're probably under that sort of iron fist. Let me see any other questions. There's one from Joe Dodds. Have you any specific film action influences, or do you just go at what looks cool, basically? Do you take anything that influences your decision in cuts and cinematics from that perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes from the client as well. So obviously, when someone's making a game, they're like, oh, I want it to be like Call of Duty but in space or something like that. You always pull out things like that you want. So we did some work on I don't know if it's out. No, I'm not going to say that. But there's certain things we did this work on this game that was really 80s, so we had to pull out all the stuff the GI Joe stuff and the A-Team, and so we take real influences from stuff like that. Or something we're working on now is more it like has a lot of anime vibes. So when we're sort of working our cinematics, we kind of look at, you know, how anime cartoons, how they do their cameras, and how like what kind of action they show, because then you can kind of match that up. And we find if you do it that way, like you get a better essence of what their game is trying to be, and it shows the game better. So there's definitely like a bunch of influences, but again, it like varies. So I feel like I don't know if you guys have heard of Rogue Company, but we've done some of their trailers and stuff like that. We definitely looked at Call of Duty and how they do their action scenes.
Okay.
But then also stuff like Apex, because it was kind of similar with like specific characters, have specific like special abilities. We'd look at that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of sort of what the vibe of the game is. Like if it's a horror game, we'll look at what's going on in horror at the time. So yeah.
Okay.
I've also seen this one that says, what project are you most proud of so far? I did a block out for one of the Borderlands title cards, which got my name in the Borderlands credits. So that's really cool. I'm really proud of that. But then also there's this game called Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, and that was I did all of the capture by myself on that, and so I'm really proud of that, because that was like a lot of our game capture is like multiplayer, so that was one of the first games I actually did just by myself, and that was a really cool game actually, so I'm quite proud of that as well.
Yeah, you should be. That's awesome. I have a nice question from Joe Darcy again. It's a bit more sort of about legal implications, I suppose. How do you choose the music and audio for trailers? Are you able to shop around, or are you given specific tracks from the clients? Is that something you have to be careful of as well?
Yeah, definitely. So we have an audio guy who he likes to do, if he can, he likes to create the sounds himself. But a lot of the time, some games will want to use like some of their in-game audio, because obviously like sound effects and stuff like that will often use just what they've got in game, or even like backing tracks that will do that. Or sometimes we'll have really awkward audio like composers from the company who are like, you can only use what I create. But if not, so with Borderlands, I feel like I'm going on about Borderlands, but that Happy Together song, that was obviously a real expensive track, but that's what they wanted, and they knew that was what they wanted to use. So in that situation, we actually have a sister studio who is a music licenser called Chord. So we work a lot with them in those situations, and they'll deal with the licensing side of things.
Okay.
And if not, then we will sometimes purchase tracks from just like audio websites. Like I said, our sound guy, we often, like a big part of the budget sometimes goes into him either creating or searching for music to like put as part of the trailer.
Awesome. Okay, great. Has anybody else got any further questions?
I found some more in the chat. Do you use any film techniques for making trailers? And if so, what kind of techniques have you used? Yeah, for sure. Especially when it comes to editing. You know, that kind of, what's his name? Edgar Wright style of editing, you know, Hot Fuzz, that like the like boom, boom, boom cuts to like new scenes and stuff. We use that kind of stuff a lot. And yeah, I think like it depends on our editing style and what we're creating, but with some of the trailers, we do a lot of how-to trailers and dev diaries. So that's obviously kind of different to like the normal trailer. And so that requires more of like, I suppose in a sense, like a bit of a documentary style of editing. So we definitely do use different techniques. Do you have any need for programmers? I mean, probably. We have like one tech guy who is so overworked. Bless him. So there's always need like for our tech side, especially because yeah, like I said, there's not many technical people in that sense. So I wouldn't see why not. I guess.
Awesome.
Oh, here's TF2. How did you, oh wait, no, we have that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered them quite well, Chloe. You've given some good answers there, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'll probably hold on to Chloe for another 5 minutes and probably let her go. But if anybody else has got any other questions,
If I could ask one, when you say you purchased the copyright to a song, does that mean you can use it in any future trailers, or is it just the one time?
No, it's more like I think the way they do it is we'll purchase that song, and you normally have to say like, oh, it will be used on this trailer for 1 minute, and it will go on YouTube, Steam, and all these places. You have to kind of specify that. You could repurchase it with a new license for another trailer, but when you purchase that original license, it applies just to like that thing you're putting it on.
Yeah.
And I just seen someone say, you never realize those trailers were us. Yeah, I always say we should put our logo at the end, just on the thing. And, you know, we haven't yet. But yeah, I think that is the thing about a trailer house is like, we're not that well known, really. But if you kind of look at the stuff we've done, like you will actually know a lot of them, like because they are bigger games. Like one of the ones that people always pride on is Planet of the Apes Last Frontier, because I think they did a lot of mocap for that. And that's another thing. We do a lot of mocap as well. But because we're a small studio, people are often kind of surprised by that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how big is the company now in terms of size?
I think we're 30 now. Yeah. So there's 30 of us, plus freelancers. So plus freelancers is probably like 40.
Okay. That's quite significant. I'm sure that's going to grow as well, obviously, in the future, the way things are going, especially with the new console generation coming out. That's pretty exciting as well for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, we want to get our hands on some of those. Oh, if Develop Brighton goes ahead this year, will you pop by for a bit? Absolutely. Hell yeah. I will definitely be there.
For the beer.
Yeah, only for the beer.
Awesome. That's excellent. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap that up. I think that's been, very insightful. Thank you so much, Chloe. I think it's brilliant. If everyone wants to give a round of applause and say, just show their appreciation, I think that's really, really cool. So well done, Chloe. Thank you.
If anyone does have any more questions they think of, you can just add me on LinkedIn or drop me an email or something. Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Your dog's got the best life ever, doesn't he?
I know, this is all he does. Come and say hello.
Oh, that's a dangerous move. Oh, bless. Very nice.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, he looks very content.
Yeah. He just eats and sleeps. That's all he does.
Awesome. Okay, Chloe, thank you very much. I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate you taking the time out again. We'll keep in touch, definitely, and take care of yourself.
Thanks, you too.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Chloe.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, that was great. What I'll do is I'll stop the recording now, the session.